Anyway, I was saying my name is Haesun, like saying hey to sun, hey sun, okay? And hey sun, hey, thank you. That's awesome. Last name is Moon, so hey sun Moon. And actually coming to, I know, and then coming to Hungary, I thought it would not happen. Because it happens every single time when I traveled, every single border, they look at my passport like, sun and moon. So I'm like, yeah, I heard it like 1,000 times. Hungarian border, I thought it would not happen. And this woman was looking so like serious, and then she's looking at my, looking at my passport, and she looks at me, she looks at her neighbor, looks at me, the passport is like, sun and moon. Leave me alone, okay? So anyway, that's me. And I apparently, something that I really care about recently, thank you so much, is that I didn't know this about me, but I love doing research around dialogue and conversations. You good? All right, thank you. So that's what I've been doing in the last about 7 years or so, doing some dialogue research using microanalysis. So I hope that many of you are interested in this thing called microanalysis that I would love to share with you today. And I'm here with Kendra, please. And we are both from Canada. So we represent the entire North America apparently in this, at this conference. Not only that, I realized that I walked down the street and then people actually stopped and looked. And I looked at, I turned to Kendra, I said, Kendra, there's so many white people here. So I'm so happy to make this group diverse. So please.
My introduction is going to be nowhere near as colorful as famous Haesun. We like to say that this is academia meets corporate. I am a trained and certified coach. I have a number of advanced designations after my name. Someone told me once that you shouldn't stop until you have more letters after your name than you have in it. Yes, the result.
Shoot. Sorry, I just realized I don't. Oh, crap.
And I first met Haesun in Module 1 of Solutions-Focused Brief Coaching, and like all of you, I fell in love with her and her thought process and how she presents new ideas. And having as much education as I do, and working in coaching as much as I do, I was very refreshed by how much I learned from her. So we're going to...
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to learn from her today too, just as all of you are. Yeah, we're excited to have you here. We have a model/tool. I know we're probably not supposed to say that in the last session because you are not...
It's John here.
It is here.
Oh, shoot.
Don't make eye contact with him.
Don't say tools.
We're going to give you some resources that will help you, no kidding around, like as soon as you leave this room, have more powerful solutions-focused conversations and help make that really visible to you. But I'd like to start by asking you all a question. Can you recall, or will you recall, a time in the recent past when you have been in a coaching conversation as the coach, and during the course of that conversation, your mindset shifted? And assume that that mindset shift was a positive one. So take a moment to just recall that for yourself. And then will you turn to a neighbor, please, and share, where was your mindset to start? Where did it end up? And how did you notice it shifted? Okay, so recent coaching conversation where you were the coach and you had a positive mind shift over the course of that conversation. Where was your mindset to begin with? Where did it end up? And how did you notice the shift? Okay, so we'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes.
As a coach? As a
you are the coach. So recent coaching conversation where you were giving coaching, you were coaching someone else, and somehow over the course of that conversation, your mindset shifted. Where did your mindset begin? Where did it end up? And how did you notice it shifted? Okay?
That's cool.
Chat to a neighbor, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt your really great conversation, but it sounds like there was a lot coming from them. I want to share with you where that question came from in me. Just at the beginning of the year, I had a former client refer someone to me. And it was just sort of, hey, Kendra, Laura is interested in knowing more about coaching. Will you have a conversation with her? And my answer to that question is always yes. And I thought going into the call, okay, this is going to be about one of two things. She's either wants to talk to me about coaching because she's interested in becoming a coach and she wants to pick my brain, or she's interested in hiring a coach and she wants to work with me. And I decided right then and there that I would not take her on as a client. I wasn't interested. My work is 99.9% in senior level corporate. And so I have a very small, precious time for what I would call a retail client. So someone who would pay me out of their own pocket. You got to be coming to me with some good stuff and be really willing to look in some places that you might not be willing to look on your own. But I decided ahead of time, I'm not. She's not the one for me. This isn't going to work. And I got onto the call with her, and we started to chat, and I asked her what are your best hopes if this were to be wildly successful beyond your biggest dreams? Where might you hope it would lead you? And the conversation progressed, and I realized by the end of the call, and I confessed this to her, I came onto this call I'd already decided that I wasn't going to work with you and I was going to give you a referral. And in fact, I already had that email drafted. But somehow, over the course of this 45 minutes, I have fallen in love with you. Aww. And I would love to work with you. So I went from being so determined that I'm not going to work with her at all to asking her if she would hire me as my coach. And I was a little flabbergasted that over the course of 45 minutes, I could have such a drastic change in mindset.
Were you willing to pay her for coaching?
So I became really fascinated around digging more into not just mindset, but like what composes it, how does it shift, and how does it inform our coaching? So I started to actually look just at mindset, because I know we're all microanalysis geeks in here. The word mindset
Geeks.
is deceptive. Mindset, as if you can just pick one and set up camp and stay there for the rest of your life. That's not true. Mindset, it occurred to me, is actually a skill, you build a skill of recovery. So if it's true that mindset informs curiosity, because right away, what would make, if we were to work together, what would make this so successful that you'd want to write me an even bigger check? And her answers informed my curiosity. My curiosity informed what I listened for, and what I listened for informed the questions that I asked. And so for me, the foundation of any good solutions-focused conversation, dare I say any good conversation in the world of humans, starts with mindset. And that is the underlying skill. How do we recover to curiosity? And how do we begin to notice that? And then it had me think, how does this apply in the world that I work in, which is 99.9% corporate. I work in North America on both sides, Canadian and US. And I work with very senior level executives who work in fast-paced, driven environments where results, it's the primary measure. And how does this apply to those conversations? In particular, when I'm having conversations with those executives around goals, metrics, and performance. Those three things, or let's call it goals, performance change, systems, anything where there's something at stake for that executive. And I realize that all of those things are outcome focused, right? Think about New Year's resolutions. It's about the thing at the end. And those goals or performance measurements are too far away for our clients to actually be able to truly resonate meaning. But if you take Carol Dweck's work, which clearly says signs of progress are where motivation comes from. So we set these big annual goals, these performance metrics, these sales targets, and in some ways we set ourselves up for failure in those if those conversations only focus on the outcome. So one of the questions I get most frequently, or I hear other coaches say, so what about this is important to you? Okay, great, how are you gonna do it? So we take our clients so quickly from deepening meaning to forwarding action. And that forwarding action, how are you gonna do it, has us come into like a fight or flight response, right? How am I gonna do it? Sorry, if I knew how I was gonna do that, I wouldn't be here talking to you, coach. So this notion of breaking goals down into signs of progress. So the goal becomes less important, but the progress you make becomes more important, because that goal is actually broken down into, we think that it's set the goal, choose an action, execute the action, get the result. Real life is thousands of nano choices throughout any given day. And in those choices are the opportunity to realign with the same goal or a new goal and choose a path that makes most sense for us in all the domains of our lives.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, we're doing this together. Yes, right. So, right, okay.
So bottom line,
Right.
progress happens through iteration. Progress happens through iteration. Yeah, we tend to not focus on the iteration part of it in corporate. Sorry? Iteration. Progress happens through iteration. Yeah. Yeah.
Repetitions. Iteration is repetition.
This is interesting.
It's almost like design thinking. Fail forward, fail fast. Do I still want this? Is this still the direction I want to go in? Is this still how I want to get there?
Use the result of the first round and then do a next round.
That's awesome. Wow. I can just listen to you guys talk about this.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Yes, it's very agile.
Okay, all right, okay. Whatever makes sense to you. Yeah.
So it's repetition based on the feedback of the results. Not doing the same, more of the same.
It's mainly
It's
not
continuing, persevering, but not more of the same, but with added feedback of the results.
Yes.
The more you listen, it gets better, eh? I love it. You know, how many of you actually have New Year's resolution thing? I gave up on it a long time ago, and then I picked it up again, quickly learning about myself that I cannot stick to same plan for 52 weeks. I know myself, so then I watched myself following a plan I can do about a week. So instead of having one goal for 52 weeks, I actually have 52 goals, each for 1 week. So that's how I do it, because that actually gives me a sense of progress. So last week, my goal was to reduce plastic garbage. So I just do it for 1 week. If I like it, I can continue. I have an option. If I don't like it, I can just forget that it ever happened to my life. Huh? So I love how you're talking about this curiosity thing and questions and all these different things, because you know, when you're talking about this mindset as not as a set of mind, but mind setting, like an ongoing process of mind setting, iterating, I think that's so interesting, because there are a lot of things in these words that I love experimenting with, such as when we talk about SF as being questions. And it's an interesting idea that we have, that SF is about questions. I don't necessarily think that way, because when I watch tons and tons of videotapes, I see that it's not much to do with questions, but it's listening and responding. On both sides, me as a coach and then the other person as a client, we do the whole process of listening, responding, listening, responding. Response options include questions, but could be also nodding, could be also just statements, could be smiling or frowning or making those noises like, yeah? So it's so interesting when you actually watch actual tape, and that's where this whole thing comes about. Because for me, when you see this word question, this is what I saw. I learned English as a second language, and this is a funny language to learn. How many of you actually speak English as a second language? Isn't that so weird? Think about it. When you look at this word, I was like looking at it, like, why is it called questions? Because there's a quest in the question. It's the question that I am on, is what people are telling me. When I work with, by the way, compared to your life, my life is a little bit flat. I don't have that many. I just wake up in the morning to my dog. My dog is weird. So such a weird dog. But I solution focused my dog. So when I got this dog, I interviewed my family member. I said, what is your best hope for this dog? And then my dad said everything that he didn't like about the previous dog. So my dad said, I want this dog, new dog, to be kind. Because the previous one was not kind to him. And then I said, Mom, what about you? What do you think this dog should be? And then she's like, oh, like intelligent. Because the previous one was not intelligent. I asked my brother, what do you want this dog to be like? What's your best hope? And he's like, oh, like a dog that is trustworthy. I can leave her home alone, it's okay. And I asked my sister, and my sister said, obedient. Okay? It was so interesting because their best hopes were something that they were missing from the previous dog. So kind, intelligent, trustworthy, and obedient. So I picked their first letters, and her name is Kito. Okay? That's her name. And what's so interesting is, how did I get there? I don't know. But anyway, I wake up to this dog every morning, and this dog is on a quest, so to speak, looking at me, and she has a very clear purpose. So when I am just about to get up, she knows it. And she will leave her bed, and she will just come near my bed and kind of like watching. So I will pretend that I'm sleeping, and then she will watch me, and it's like, she's sleeping. And then she will make some noise, and I'll ignore it, and she was like, is she up yet? And if my eyes are small to begin with, but first thing in the morning, they're a little bit smaller when they're just about to open. But my dog notices the smallest sign of me waking up, and that's when she starts pawing me. Do you have a dog? How many of you actually have a dog? You know what I'm talking about. Dogs, they actually paw you like, hey, feed me. So it's so interesting because I wake up to a plain day, and then I go to, maybe sometimes, if I'm lucky, I have paying clients sometimes. But I meet with them, they ask the funniest questions. I used to answer them until I read Peter Szabo's article on 13 different ways of responding to questions. How many of you actually heard that? 13 different ways of responding to questions. And one lesson I learned is this: when people ask a question, they are on a quest. They're searching for something. And I realized that I need to be listening for what they are searching for. I need to be curious about it, because I'm not sure what it is that you're looking for. So answering the question was not one of the 13 different ways of responding to questions. From my students, from my whatever, when people had a question, I listened to the quest that they're on. And they changed my practice about 7 years ago, thinking that way. And I talk about this because out of this, we talk about this word curiosity, and we're going to play with some words here. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but I think it would be useful to play with some words here. So one of the questions that I get often asked from my clients, they ask me things like this. So all these different things, but usually they ask me, how do I change somebody else? Okay? So how do I change my boss? I'm the only one who's doing this. How do I change my team? And interesting questions that they ask. And if I go beyond what they're actually asked, the content of what they're asking, but going to maybe the intent, you would call it, you get a lot of different things in what they're actually searching for. So one of the things that I'm going to ask you to think about is this. When you're working with clients, especially people who are doing like executive thing that they do, or whatever that is, what quest are they on? The recent clients that you actually worked with, and the conversations that you had with them, what quest are they on? Okay? Very quick conversation. Turn to your neighbor, think of that one client, and especially the client that you're thinking, I don't know about this client. In fact, I think he's an idiot. I don't know. So think about that client and then think back to your conversation. What was the quest that they're on? Okay? Quick exchange, 2 minutes, and John.
May I just add something to that
Yes.
question? You said quest. What's interesting at the end is ions.
Yes.
And ions is charge. So ions are charged. So it's the quest with the charge.
You've been reading too many science books. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
I never thought of your concept of quest.
I love that.
Actually,
Okay.
there's the second word in there, which is ions.
Yeah.
It's a quest with a charge. Your question.
Quest with a charge.
Small body,
You know,
very small body.
someone really smart once told me
That's me again.
that all of our questions are loaded, and our responsibility as coaches is to load them correctly.
Oh, I'm so glad that she says that. I learned that line from Janet Bavelis, the microanalysis person. I have to credit her for everything that I am doing now. And the work that we are doing, actually, as many of you, your work is, it's informed by so many other people's labor. Janet Bavelis, absolutely. Peter Zabel, Peter DeYoung, Harry Corman, all these people who have done the, what do you call it, seeding and cleaning up the weeds. And then now I feel like I'm harvesting. So I really want to give credit to all these people who are informing our practice. And I hope that that is actually the practice that we have among this room as well. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you want them to do?
Oh, so quick chat about the client that you just worked with and what quest were they on, okay? Quick chat, 2 minutes. Frequently
Harvest come from you. What came up in your conversation? What are some of the FAQs that your clients are asking? Or quests that they're on?
Self-esteem, self-enough.
Self-esteem, self-enough. Great.
Wow.
What else?
Interesting. Huh.
One. You go ahead.
For mine, it's harmony, inner harmony.
Inner harmony.
What's the balance?
Oh yeah, balance. Yeah.
Yeah, balance and harmony.
Confirmation, whether I think.
Decision making. Decision making.
Being valued for who I am.
Wow.
What else?
Better results.
Better results.
And come out of the box.
Huh.
They are media, and they feel like in box. So solution comes often of possibility to look in another way, and they see another story about this. So often the core is there.
Yeah.
Help to come out of the box.
Come out
Yeah,
of the box.
I hear this a lot and this one a lot in corporate. How do I get my team to think more strategically? How do I get my team to think more strategically?
Because they need to change.
Yes. Here and then here.
Clarity.
Clarity.
That's true. That's true.
Stay inside the box, I mean, of reality. Stay inside that box while being a CEO, which is a additional challenge.
Sounds like a good box you're in.
Sometimes it's meaning, looking for meaning, and also legacy. What's my legacy?
That's true. Yeah. Recognition, yeah.
Great. Look at this list already.
Solutions.
That's true. Do you want me to rise?
No, we're good.
Yeah, there's one more.
Keep a distance.
Keeping distance?
Keeping a distance.
Keeping a
Keeping a
distance, better
distance.
relationships.
Cool.
It's maybe not a consulting or coaching context. Keeping a distance. A bit outside of this.
So not marrying your client, so to speak. I don't know. I mean, does it happen? I mean, how many of you actually married your client? I'm kidding.
Just to have someone, I mean, just to be someone.
Just to be someone, yeah.
Cool.
May I add one?
Integrity.
Integrity. Wow. That's so cool.
I'm going to add, from my own experience with clients, prioritizing. That's another one, yeah. Decision making.
Prove your value.
Getting people to do something.
Or not do something.
Do something.
Yeah. You know, here's an example. I was trying to get Irma to sit in an independent chair, and I even offered a chair, and then I just didn't realize that she would prefer to sit with Aaron. So hey, so get.
That's his name?
They often have this to get someone to talk to.
Yeah. Talk to.
Rent a friend.
Yeah.
Needing somebody to talk to.
Nothing more, just you.
So
Wow. It must be the company paying for it. It must be the company paying for it?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Prove your value.
Is it not like self-esteem?
Yeah, also.
So wouldn't it be so fantastic if our clients came to us with this clarity already? Here's the quest I'm on. Can you help me get better results, come out of the box, build better relationships? But they don't sound like that. They sound like, how can I get work-life balance? How am I gonna prioritize everything that I have and still meet results? How can I get my team to ... And depending on what our mindset is in that moment, is going to inform what we listen for, which will inform the questions we ask, which is either going to be in alignment with or out of alignment with the quest that the client is actually on.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Want to show them a little model?
Yeah, sure. Hey, can I actually ask you to reflect on the list, the one that you actually hear often? And what do you do when your client comes to you and say, this is my topic? How do you respond to that? Can you actually just quickly reflect on that? Just 1 minute reflection. And what do you do? I also wonder about this. Okay? I have a very small wonderment. Thank you. Hey, how many of you noticed something like this in your conversation? Okay? So your person that you work with comes with a topic like this. Okay? And then somehow you have this topic and you have different ways of working with this person. So here's the same topic, let's say. And here's topic. One way of working with this topic is, of course, our great process we use in corporations that it's called discussion. We have a discussion about it. How many of you have enough discussions at work? Discussion? Okay. And it's so amazing because discussion is an interesting thing because when you're having a discussion, you're doing something, but then we're not sure what it is, exactly what we're doing, but it's in the word itself. I told you that we're going to play with the word a little bit. In the word discussion, there's a cushion in it. You cuss. No, you don't. I mean, discussion. But what other English words that you know it has cushion in it? Concussion? Yeah, keep it positive here, okay? Got it? Okay. So concussion, percussion, what do they have in common, you think? Concussion, percussion, what do you think?
They have the same sound.
They hit something, yeah?
Right.
Hit your head? and then hit your instrument. So this actually means to hit. What are we hitting here? When we're having a discussion, what are you hitting? What are you breaking apart? The topic, you break it apart into different parts. So we have different parts like this. And then what do we do? What's the function of discussion? So that we can, of course, we can decide. Out of these 4 options, we are going to decide what will be the best option. Because the word decide actually had side in it. Other than cider, what other English words that you know that has side in it? Keep it positive? What do you? Homicide is positive to you? Okay. So, homicide, suicide, pesticide, and side. I'm sorry, it's so negative because it actually means to kill. When you look at the word decide, what are you killing?
The other option.
Hello. So you kill off, you do pros and cons, and then you kill off all the other options just to survive this best option. That's the function of discussion. It's not so cool, and this is useful. We also call it problem solving. And we do that sometimes if we are not careful with these topics. People come with these topics, I want to have self-esteem. Okay, so when was the last time you had something like that? What else? And when do you not have it? Okay, so pros and cons. So what's the next step? To gain more self-esteem. So you are still staying in this topic. Not only that, at the end of it, you end up with a little part. Sometimes I see that in coaching conversations, not necessarily solution-focused. Okay? And here's a different process here. I love when I see this. When somebody comes up with a topic, and we do something very different with it. So I'm sure you've seen this. Somebody comes up with a topic, especially in solution-focused way, some strange things that we do looks like this. They came up with topic, and then we ask weird things like, so, suppose. And then they say, oh, this. It's like, oh, what else? And suppose this, then what difference? And then somehow you see from out of one topic, you end up with different topics in any, like no specific direction. It just goes out like that. Does that look like any, like, how many of you garden here? Potatoes? Potato, you have to grow potato. So when you grow potatoes, here's what happened. You actually plant one and it just grows out. You don't know which way it's growing. It's not like growing up, it's grow out. It just goes out. So by the time it's harvest time, you pick out one potato and then you're like, who started this potato? You don't know because they're all connected. You don't know which potato started at all. And this potato is not any less potato than the previous potato. It's a potato. Huh? This is so amazing when you see something like this happens, because this is not a destination we want to get to. This is a departure point. This is a departure point. That's why we depart from that initial topic. Suppose this. Why is it important to you? Suppose this, then who will notice the difference? All those awesome things that we do so that we can actually grow more potatoes. And what's amazing about this is by the time your client actually leaves the room, maybe they have more options than they thought they did. They have like, oh, I never thought of that. And that's so interesting when you see people grow potatoes. Okay? Huh? So if you notice, but the thing is this, I get challenged all the time by other coaching models. They say, but how do you, the whole accountability thing, how do you know that they're doing what they said they're going to be doing? I don't know. But when I see something like this, this is actually called dialogue. By the way, dialogue has interesting part in it too, because dia, what other words that you know in English that has dia in it?
No, I did not say diarrhea. That wasn't me. A diagram.
Diarrhea, he says, okay. Diarrhea. What else do you know?
Diagram.
Diagram, okay. Diaspora. Ah, cool. What else? Diarrhea. Yeah, you're going to stick to diarrhea. Okay.
No. Diary.
Oh, diary. Ah, that's interesting. Okay. There are words like diabetes. I don't know. There's like diaphragm. Huh? All those things. Diameter, I guess. Dialing. All right. Dialysis. So this is an interesting part because used in diagnosis means thoroughly. Thorough. Diagnosis, you thoroughly know. But who's doing the work of knowing? Of course, the experts. But in this case, what it means is dia means through. Like diabetes, for example, you pass through pee. Diarrhea, it passes through your system, so it's diarrhea. And actually means to through. So sometimes people think dialogue is conversation between two people. That's not the case. If you want to make it about conversation between two people, you will call it duologue, like dual. So in this case, dia means to go across or something to do with through or thorough. And log, you know that you use this word every day. Did you know? How many of you open your computer? Log in? Log out? You know, the word log actually means what it is. It's a big log. In olden days, when they didn't have means to kind of type in or punch in, they had this big piece of wood. When workers go into work, they will actually mark on the piece of log. Logging in and logging out. And we still log in, log out. So what's interesting about it is log actually means something to do with words or recording something. But then I'm going to ask you this question. How come the word dialogue has both parts in it? Through, thorough, across, and words. Hey, quick chat. Take a guess. What's the function of a dialogue, given that it has those two parts in it? Okay? Quick one. Oh, by the way, you might not sure, but here's the thing. As you talk with your partner, please look and sound confident. Okay? Please look and sound very confident. This is it. All right? Please chat. 60 seconds, okay? Go on. As if you know what you're talking about. It's amazing. Some of you actually look like you know what you're talking about. Peter actually reached over and is like, yeah, this is what it is. I love it. You look like you know what you're talking about. This is cool, huh? So here's a little thing that I want to share with you because, thank you for holding it for me. One of the things that I decided to about 2 years ago is to call solution-focused not as a coaching, not as therapy, not as counseling, but calling it as solution-focused dialogue. And I think that is very descriptive of what we do because the function of dialogue is to really, all right. Function of dialogue is to generate more options, create meaning and have mutual understanding across the table using words, using language. And that is way more descriptive than other things that empty words like coaching, I don't know, therapy, but it's a dialogue, it's a process. It's not a noun, it's a verb. It's a process. And dialogue is a constant negotiation. And sometimes this is what happens. One of my learners will come and say, what do you do with clients who talk so much? They talk so much. What do you do? And then I say, so what did you do? And they will say, well, I learned in school that I have to give space and honor the silence and take turns when they give you all these interesting ideas that people have. I don't know where that comes from. And then I asked Peter DeYoung this question, what do you do with people who talk a lot? And Peter said, well, people talking a lot is not a sign of them talking a lot, but it's more of a sign of you not giving enough cue that you're listening, actually. And Peter said, you need to let them know that you're listening, interrupt them. That's what he said. And I was like, you are not supposed to interrupt your client. But then what he meant was, you being there is already interruptive. Did you know? You are doing all these weird things like, very interruptive. If you notice when you take notes, your client actually stops talking until you're done taking notes. Because that's interruption. Huh? And there are many different qualities of us showing them, yeah, we hear ya. Because in microanalysis, without calibration or without building the mutual understanding, conversation does not move forward. And you can make that visible. And I would love to, I mean, many of you probably know this already, but I just wanted to kind of show you the little map that we have. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, I mean, what are you going to say, no? Is that okay? Yeah. So here's a little map that I noticed because I struggled a lot with teaching solution focused. And I realized that, you know, the way that solution focus came about was very inductive. We were noticing, we're listening, we're noticing when the client seems to kind of like a little bit happier than other times. And it was done inductively, but we distilled all those great things to a set of questions. And then we start to teach our students distilled version of it, robbing them of that experience of inductively observing and finding out for themselves, is what I felt. So then I just thought, how do we get back to that inductively looking at your work? And out of that, I got to learn microanalysis, and it's informed by microanalysis and everyone that I studied with. And of course, it's a dialogue model that is very simple, something to do with the past. When your client or somebody, your kids, your spouse, they come to talk to you, there is a timeline. This is called timeline. And they will tell you something from the past, and then they will tell you something from the future. And I have shared this with leaders and whatever, and this is one model that seems to stick with them. And this takes about 5 minutes to kind of tell them and show them. And afterwards, when I ask them what was most useful, people actually say this was useful because they can use it. Huh? So here's a timeline, and here is a vertical line. And this is what is informed by microanalysis. Because in microanalysis, there's a very clear concept of positive content and negative content of the client's life. Okay? And simply put, positive content is something that you want to see up in your life. Negative content is something that you want to see less of in your life. Again, when I first started to do this, somebody put their mother-in-law, and it doesn't work like that. Okay? Here's a mother-in-law. No, it's not the person, but it's interactions. There are some more preferred interactions and then less preferred interactions. So it's not the person, but it's more of an interaction or experiences. So when you see something like this, what I love about this way of looking at your conversation is you can play with it in so many different ways. Okay? For example, somebody comes and they say, I really want to work on my self-esteem. Somebody says, I want to be valued for who I am. Or it could be a one-liner, people come and talk to you. You can't even map one-liner. And the famous example from the textbook that I learned when I was learning solution focused is this guy who's been doing drugs. And I think it was an interview with Steve. And he says, Steve says, so what brought you here? And the person says, well, I'm dealing with drug issues right now. Remember the story? Great. Hey, that's my job security that you don't remember a thing. So when the client says, I am struggling with drug issues right now, that was the response, one-liner. Okay? Now, if you were to map it, this is an easy map. So this one over here is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, 3, and 4. And quadrant 1 is positive future, or as known as preferred future in our world, yeah? And then number 2 over here is, of course, positive past or resourceful past or whatever you want to call it. Quadrant 3 is, I don't know, what is it? Negative past? A trauma, sometimes people call it, difficulty, whatever, troubled past and whatever, that stuff, regretful past, okay? And then number 4 is dreaded future. It could be an exam. It could be like a next board meeting. I don't know what it is, but that little bit of a dread or fear that you have. So these are 4 different quadrants. And what you can do is this. You can map the client's response on this quite easily. So let's start with one-liner that you just heard. I am dealing with drug issues right now. How would you map it on this? Okay. Could you quickly work with your partner for 1 minute and map that one sentence? I'm dealing with drug issues right now. Here's a sentence, by the way. The sentence is, I am dealing with XX issues right now, and you can actually put in some of these things. I'm dealing with confidence issues right now, whatever it might be that people are saying. How would you map it on this, this map? Map it on this map, yeah. How would you map it on this map? It's a verb and a noun. So there you go. How would you do that? What belongs to either exact language that they used or inferred curiosity that you have? How would you map this?
Depends on the mindset, I guess. If you hear, I'm dealing with it, it could be on the plus side.
Okay.
And somewhere in the now, so around 1 or 2.
Okay.
Just in the middle.
Dealing with. Okay. Hey.
Especially when you're dealing with drugs and making tons of money out of it, you want to see more of that.
I love your perspective. Wow. What else? What else? Okay. What else do you see? I'm dealing with this. Yes?
Well, if you emphasize the right now, that means it's not a constant, it's like a momentary thing.
Okay. Inferred is, you said right now, so it's not a constant thing, but right now you're dealing with it. Okay. So somewhere along the line, like right now is the word that seems to be kind of like happening right now, so you can actually assume that it wasn't happening all the time. That's pretty cool. What else? It's a simple one sentence. Is that pretty cool? What else do you hear?
If we hear a past, a present, and a future situation, unless this client changes something. So it comes from the past. He's saying, I'm dealing with this. This means the problem started somewhere. He has this problem and situation right now, and he's here because he understands unless something changes, he's going to be stuck with this issue in his dreaded future.
Depending on your curiosity. But here's the thing.
He wants something.
Say that again?
He wants something.
He wants something. Yeah.
He wants something.
Yeah, and that's the level of curiosity
You want
that
something.
we want you to sort of hang out in a little bit. The biggest, the person, the quest, not the problem or the thing that's happening right in the moment.
And that's interesting because every word in this sentence can be an opportunity. Like Lance Taylor and Joel Simon talks about opportunity, finding that opportunity in like a little utterance like this. You say I, so how are you dealing with it? How are other people dealing with it? It's an opportunity. What do you mean by dealing with it? It could be, you say right now, so what's happening other times? What have you dealt with in the past? You can go in so many different directions, but what's so interesting is this. As you listen to the client's narrative, you have so many different options. And let's play with it a little bit. And oftentimes the misunderstanding is people think, solution-focused people, force people to look at 1 and 2 only. That's not what's happening, actually. What's happening is your client will give you stuff from all over, but what we know how to do is how do you shift it and recover that curiosity. So for example, you might hear a lot of things that somebody's talking about here, the problem, trauma, and it's my mother's fault and all that stuff. But then you have different options. One option is to stay there. So yeah, you can actually ask other things or do something so that make sure that your client stays in their regretful past. Or by actually even asking, so when did it begin? I mean, that's fun to ask. Somebody's talking about their problem. It's like, oh, when was the first time that you noticed that that was a problem? Does it run in your family? I don't know. So you can do a lot of different, is it in your DNA, John? So you can do those things. Each quadrant has so many different options. You can stay there or you can move. This is movement number 1. You can actually move here, for example. So what would you do if somebody comes and they are what you perceived as they are just doing a lot of problem talking? And this is what we know how to do as solution-focused people. How do we move this conversation up so that they are orienting towards past positive, resource past? That's one. Another option is this. This is another fun option. Somebody's talking about, oh, I just failed my exam, and I don't think I'm smart enough. And I didn't really study enough, but it was really difficult. I don't know what to do. What would you say to the student if you want the student to actually look towards the fearful future? What would you say? Be free, okay? Just be free from the solution-focused mask. What would you say?
What's the worst thing that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen? Tell me in detail, okay? What else would you be able to do so that make sure the client stays in here? What would you say?
Imagine, suppose you continue
That sounds like a pretty sound coaching question. That's why it hurts more. Right.
What do you know about yourself that lets you know that you're going to fail again?
You are so good at this. Huh? Wow. Who else might share this view? I don't know. You know what? Let's stay here. This is good.
Suppose tonight a disaster happens.
And just when you didn't think it was possible, things got worse.
And I love that question. And here's what happens. We laugh about it, but in organizational development, we call it risk management. We do that. We say risk management and we go there because we need to manage a risk. And it's not a weird thing to do because it's OD. Isn't that weird? Over here, you think we will never go there, but how many of you actually heard of this term, root cause analysis? It's a very, it's very popular. I don't know if European people are stupid enough to do that, but North Americans, they do that all the time, yeah?
It's
okay. Stupid Americans. Ah, okay. Well, you know, I noticed that there's nobody from the States. Stupid Americans. Yeah. We call this root cause analysis in OD. Risk management in OD.
And in dentistry, we also call it root cause analysis. It's helpful.
Right, huh? And then here's another option. We can always do this as well. And each quadrant has those 4 options. So in a given context, you will have at least 16 options of responses, if you think about it. Because you can, from one sentence, if you can actually map it to all 4 different quadrants. First, I mean, if you want to work with this phrase, dealing with, okay? Just let's play for a little bit. If you were to build on this phrase, so dealing with, okay? If you were to, let's try in different ways, how might you respond to this? And your intention is to get the client to stay in this quadrant. Okay, second task. What would you do or say if your intention is to kind of do this? Building on the same word, dealing with. Okay, use this phrase. And how might you do this? Pull them right back into the fearful future, preserving the language of your client, And by the way, this session is to set you free from solution-focused pandemic. Okay? Just think about, thank you. Think about all the options and possibilities. Because once we know that, we can talk about what are the presuppositions and all those things. But here's a task: preserve the language dealing with, but just play how you can actually move on this map, preserving the language, okay? Go for it, 3 minutes. Okay? Creative people, I would love to hear from you, especially around quadrant. How would you move this perfectly fine phrase to quadrant 3 and 4? Please set me free, okay? What would you say? Yes, please.
How bad is it on a scale from 1 to 10?
What's the 1?
1 is not that bad. 10 is way off.
Okay. Wow, sounds like emergency room. Okay. Hey, what else? Cool.
You know, there's a chance of 0.01 to get out of this problem. I mean, how do you think you're going to deal with it in the future?
Wow, okay. Okay. Well, that's slightly depressing. Okay. What else? Yes?
How long did it take that you started to deal with it?
Wow. Okay. How come you waited this long? Okay. What took you so long? Why? Okay. Okay. Tell me about specific barriers. Okay. What else?
What is your problem that you started dealing with drugs?
Say that again?
What is your enfant
Okay.
problem that you start dealing with drugs?
Wow. The root cause.
Childhood problem? What is your childhood
problem? Tell me about your childhood that led you to this path. I love it. So pretty much you're asking this. What's wrong with you and when did it begin? Okay? That feels so good. Hey, let's play with this one.
How will it ruin your most cherished relationships if you fail to deal with this problem?
Wow. And to make it a little bit more specific, how would this specifically impact your relationship in a negative way? Wow. Please don't answer these questions in your head, by the way. I want you to leave it on a high note, okay? So please, okay? Just give me one more. Yes?
Imagine 40 years from now, you're lying in your hospital bed, taking out of your arm, and you're picking the scabs from your disease, and your family is lying around your bed. How would they feel?
The quality of that detail.
Wow.
And how do you feel now?
Wow, you guys are horrible.
And what else?
Wow. But I tell you, but really it is so possible to generate so many details and options doing that. And that's the scary part of it. We know how to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then imagine slowing it down even more and staying down here looking for signs of progress. How will you know it's getting just a tiny bit worse?
What? Anyway. And you know what to do here, so I'm not going to even ask you, but just give me a 1 or 2. What would you do if you were to kind of, whatever? What would you do? And please, if somebody is asking solution-focused way of thinking, please yawn, okay? It's boring. We know how to do this. But what would you say if you were to preserve that language, and how would you do that? Okay? When I say preserve, it's interesting because so it sounds like you're having some problems with dealing with it. When did it begin? And if you want to do this, you can say, so sounds like you might continue to have some problems dealing with it. And what would be the worst outcome? If you fail 40 years from now on your hospital bed, and suppose you totally failed at dealing with it, and you gave up on it, what would happen? Preserving the language, it's not about the language. Language is so permeable that you can play with it in a way that it moves about on the map. And that's what we are doing here. It's not the language that contains the meaning, it's how you use it. Same thing that you're using in a very different ways. And guess what happens? According to microanalysis, where you direct their attention to, our clients are so cooperative, they go there. And microanalysis shows us when we pick up on the positive content, clients are more likely to stay in the positive content. When the practitioner, not SF necessarily, when they actually focus on negative content, sure enough, the next utterance right after that is negative. You can show that using microanalysis. So then we have options all the time because we're having a dialogue. So kind of looking back at this, we kind of know how to do this already, but then showing people how to, showing them this is actually what happens. It's something that I actually learned because when my students come and then they're like, oh, I don't know, the session was weird or the client was resistant and all those things, only thing I have to say is show me your session. Let's map it. And by the time we're like 90 seconds through, they are beating their heads like an idiot and all that stuff. And then my job is very easy because at that moment I can say, no, look at this little tiny thing that you really did well. It's a sign of progress. And then you can always save their self-esteem because by the end of that feedback, they're so motivated to look at their own work. When we first started to teach microanalysis, people were like, I am not doing the video. I don't have my makeup on. I hate how I sound on the video. But after they see something like this, they cannot wait to go and videotape their session. Another little thing that helps me is this. I do not ask for permission. I don't say, is it okay, guys, that you're going to videotape? I don't do that. I say, so when you look at your videotape, here's what you're going to look for. And it is very assumed that they're going to be doing the videotapes. So I really hope that you kind of see how this might be useful. Very simple, but I use it almost every day when I have a conversation with practitioners. Because one of the things that I am still learning from working with the practitioner is this is how we curate their story. Our clients come with a specific narrative they have rehearsed over the years in their life. I am this kind of person, that kind of person, this kind of person. By the time that you're done your session with them, they have a very different story because that's how you curate it throughout the dialogue. And curate, there is, I was talking about it in a pre-conference, that there's a part that says, it's a word, cura, C-U-R-A, in it. Curate. Curate actually is like the person at the museum curating. And cura actually means to care or to cure. And also that same word is in the word curiosity. So in a way that things that you care about, you really listen to things that people say that they care about, and that you get them to talk more about what they care about. And that process, and you're curious about what they care about, and that's what makes the process so healing, in my experience anyway. Whether I'm working with the students, clients, leaders, or whatever they are, parents, couples. So this is what I am still learning, working with practitioners. Ken?
Well, one of my observations is when I can continually be trying to recover my curiosity to the quest level and have this in my mind and help my clients build awareness around the signs of progress, it actually frees up space for them to build relationships, to create impact, and to have growth. And when those things happen, the body releases oxytocin and dopamine, and that gives us the feeling that we call fulfillment.
Oxytocin and...
And it's that feeling of fulfillment that everyone is after at work, and that's where the motivation comes to actually get to the end goal. But our job is to stay curious at this level, to use this map well, and to focus on signs of progress as opposed to final outcomes.
Signs of regress, I suppose.
Right.
And you know, I'm so excited that I get to share this practice with you, because I am so hopeful that you're gonna find it not only useful but actually usable. That you can leave and right away use it. Huh? So in closing, would you all stand up actually? Would you all stand up? And here's a little wish for each other as you go around the room and shake hands of good-looking people. Good-looking people, 7 or 8 of them, okay? Meet them and shake hands and say this, okay? Good luck curating better stories. Okay? Good luck curating better stories. Okay? At least 7 people, go for it.